So let's talk about a club of an immense size. Not too many clubs around the world can actually honestly make the claim of being most successful, but this one absolutely can, which is why we're talking about Al Ahly of Egypt. Pretty subjective thing of what's the most successful club in the world. There's different levels. Real Madrid is always in that conversation with the amount of European titles that they've won. This club can claim it because they have won 144 titles between cups, international cups, and league titles in Egypt, that being the biggest number of titles pretty much anywhere around the world. I'm going to show you this jersey a little closer here in a second, but this is their 2021 home kit. All red, their famed color, gives them their nicknames, the Red Giant, as well as the Red Devils. Their favorite nickname overall, though, given to them by the Confederation of African Football, is the Club of the Century, something they were given for being the best club all around Africa in the 20th century, something they're well on the way to as well in this century. Really nice kit from Umbro here. I like the light and dark red checks that go up and down the center of it, and it's a pretty good fit. You can pick off a lot of information from their badge, which has actually changed in recent years, which pissed off their fans a lot, and you'll see why. So here's where that claim of most successful club comes from. 42 Egyptian Premier League titles, that's where the 4 stars across the top come from. 10 African Champions League titles, 8 of them coming this century, for the 10 stars that you can see across the bottom of the badge. Also, the title of Club of the Century, sitting below those stars, is a place of honor. Within the badge, you can see that they were founded in 1907, knowing that they are a very long-standing club. And finally, below the badge itself, the number 72, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. The thing that's frustrated fans is the recent change to the badge. Remove the Club of the Century title, which is a immense one and should be shown with pride in their opinion, as well as reducing the 10 stars for the Champions League down to just 1 star, so representing the 10 titles with just 1. Some odd changes that haven't gone over well with the fan base. The 72 is also no longer present there, which is particularly troubling, seeing as it is representing the 72 supporters who died in the Port Said Stadium riot. The backstory there is in 2012, after a match against Al Masry at their stadium in Port Said, immense amount of fans of that club attacked Al Ahly supporters within the stadium, holding them there, closing the gates, and killing many of them, the 72, and injuring an immense amount more. Many people believe that it was politically motivated and premeditated, and it caused an immense amount of trouble all across Africa and specifically within Egyptian football, closing down the league for 2 seasons. So not seeing that 72 there is particularly troubling to a lot of fans, and it would be very similar to Liverpool fans not seeing the 96, now 97, on the back of their kit for fans lost in the Hillsborough disaster. As far as rivalries go, their biggest one is with Zamalek, also from Cairo. They compete the Cairo Derby, that being one that routinely happens within the Egyptian Cup season, and on top of that, in the Champions League, with the final in 2020 against the two being dubbed the match of the century in Africa, with Al Ahly coming out on top 2-1. 2 more pieces of trivia for you are, 1, they routinely beat European giant clubs shortly after they've won a European Cup or the Champions League, those being Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Benfica, and Steaua Bucharest. And second, and going towards their claim as most successful club in the world, in 2005 they had an undefeated season. And now this is different from when we've talked about invincible seasons like we did with Arsenal in a previous video, in that this club in 2005 did not lose a match in any competition. Arsenal during their invincible season went through the entire league season without losing. Al Ahly in 2005 didn't lose in the league, didn't lose in the cup competition, didn't lose the Super Cup final they competed, as well as in the Champions League, did not lose an entire match and won that entire competition. That's 46 matches across the entire season where they did not lose. And I don't think I can think of another club that has done that in an entire season. Being a massive club in Africa means that Al Ahly has had some of the most incredible talent come through their club. And I'll start with just 3 of them, the first being Mohamed Abu Trika, who's probably the best Egyptian player this century and criminally underknown outside of the continent, seeing as he only played within the continent for his entire career. He had 38 goals for the Egyptian national team and was capped 100 times, which is a very hard thing to do because it's a pretty competitive national club. On top of that, pretty much anybody can put him into the same argument with Mohamed Salah for best Egyptian footballer of this century. The second being another prolific goal scorer, Hassam Hassan, who played for the club in 2 stints in the 80s and 90s. He's the all-time leading goal scorer for the Egyptian national team, which means you can also claim him to be the best Egyptian player of the 80s and 90s, and probably all-time as well. He also has a twin brother who played for Al Ahly and pretty much mirrored the career with each other, playing at 5 other clubs in Europe, as well as Egypt and the Middle East. And third, let's not just talk about attacking talent at this club, let's talk about defense as well, with Wael Gouma being one of the greatest African defenders of all time in the club in this century, is really critical as well for the Egyptian national team, winning the African Cup of Nations 3 times in a row this century. In the current squad, as usual, they have a lot of immense talent as well on the African stage, and we'll start with Mohamed Sharif as their center forward. And second, let's talk about Ahmed Abdel Kadir, who at 23 is in the new generation of young Egyptian talent. Can play pretty much anywhere across the forward line, but is best as a left winger. So, this has been your rundown on the club of the century, Al Ahly from Egypt.